Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Jivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Jivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jivaradhari. Hari Hari Bol.
Jagannashami ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from the first canto, second chapter, text number 7. Vasudeve Bhagavati
Vasudeve Bhagavati
Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha
Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha
Janayati Ashubhagyam
Janayati Ashuvvairagyam
Chaya Rahaitukam
Jnanam Chaya Rahaitukam
Vasudeve Bhagavati
Vasudeve Bhagavati
Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha
Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha
Janayati Ashubhagyam
Janayati Ashuvvairagyam
Chaya Rahaitukam
Jnanam Chaya Rahaitukam
वासुदेवे भगवती
वासुदेवे भगवती
भक्ति योग प्रयोजितः
भक्ति योग प्रयोजितः
नित्याशु वैराग्यम
ज्ञानेत्याशु वैराग्यम
ज्ञानं च यत् अहैतुकम्
ज्ञानं च यत् अहैतुकम्
वासुदेवे भगवती
वासुदेवे भगवती
भक्ति योग प्रयोजितः
भक्ति योग प्रयोजितः
नित्याशु वैराग्यम
ज्ञानेत्याशु वैराग्यम
ज्ञानं च यत् अहैतुकम्
ज्ञानं च यत् अहैतुकम्
वासुदेवे भगवती
वासुदेवे भगवती
भक्ति योग प्रयोजिता
भक्ति योग प्रयोजितः
जनयति आशु वैराग्यम
जनयत्याशु वैराग्यम
ज्ञानं च यत् अहैतुकम्
ज्ञानं च यत् अहैतुकम् वासुदेवे भगवती भक्ति योग प्रयोजितः जनयत्याशु वैराग्यम ज्ञानं च यत् अहैतुकम्
Radha Priya, why don't you tell the other devotees we're having class? Because I didn't announce it. Maybe you could send a message or something. Does someone know how to invite people to Facebook? There's a way you can invite your friends. You know how? How do you invite your friends on Facebook? You know how? To a Facebook live class? There's a way to do it. One of those buttons on the bottom. You hit one of those buttons on the bottom and you can invite anybody.
The class is also live on Mayapur TV, Mayapur TV.
Okay. So word meanings. Vasudeve.
Vasudeve.
Unto Krishna.
Unto Krishna.
Bhagavati.
Bhagavati.
Unto the personality of Godhead.
Unto the personality of Godhead.
Bhakti yoga.
Bhakti yoga.
Contact of devotional service.
Contact of
Devotional service.
Prayojitaha.
Prayojitaha.
Being applied.
Being applied.
Janayati.
Janayati.
Does produce.
Does produce.
Ashu.
Ashu.
Very soon.
Very soon.
Vairagyam.
Vairagyam.
Detachment.
Detachment.
Jnanam.
Jnanam.
Knowledge.
Knowledge.
Cha.
Cha.
And. Yat.
Yet.
That which.
That which.
Ahoitukam.
Ahoitukam.
Causeless.
Causes.
Translation. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Śrī Kṛṣṇa, one immediately, ashu, very soon, acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Purport. Those who consider devotional service to the Supreme Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa to be something like material, emotional affairs may argue that in the revealed scriptures, sacrifice, charity, austerity, knowledge, mystic power, and similar other processes of transcendental realization are recommended. In other words, it's saying that we don't do that. There's so many things we don't do. At least not the way it may be recommended in some scriptures. According to them, bhakti or devotional service of the Lord is meant for those who cannot perform the high-grade activities. It's also meant for people who are not that smart. That's also so. It's because Prabhupada here is describing detachment, sacrifice, charity, austerity, knowledge is mentioned also. So it's both things. So that argument is given. Bhakti is for those who don't have jnana and can't do tapasya and other things. Other austerities. Generally it is said that the bhakti cult is meant for the Shudras, Vaishyas, and the less intelligent women class. But that is not the actual fact. The bhakti cult is the topmost of all transcendental activities, and therefore it is simultaneously sublime and easy. It is sublime for the pure devotees who are serious about getting in contact with the Supreme Lord. And it is easy for the neophytes who are just on the threshold of the house of bhakti. To achieve contact of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Śrī Kṛṣṇa, is a great science. And it is open for all living beings, including the Shudras, Vaishyas, women, and even those lower than the low-born Shudras, so what to speak of the high-class men like the qualified Brahmanas and the great self-realized kings. The other high-grade activities designated as sacrifice, charity, austerity are all corollary factors following the pure and scientific bhakti cult. You know, Krishna mentions Striya Vaishyas Tata Shudras in Bhagavad Gita. Because otherwise, you think spiritual life is only for Brahmins and Kshatriyas. So then, or only male Brahmins and Kshatriyas. And so there he mentions Vaishya Shudras and women. And then here Prabhupada says, but that doesn't include everyone, because then you have people outside Vedic culture. So what about them? Even those. So sometimes we might say, oh, the Vaishyas are low, Shudras are low, women are low. But people born out of, without Garbhadam Samskar are really, Varna Shankar, are really Mlecha Yavanas. So we're lower than that. And we're pretty low. Don't get too proud. My great-grandfather was a Brahmin. Okay, that's nice. What about you? What are you? Did your parents do Garbhadam Samskar? Maybe they did, I don't know. But if they didn't, then that's a definition of less than Shudra, Mlecha Yavana. The principles of knowledge and detachment are two important factors. I have to make some adjustments. It's getting in the way of the book. Yeah, it goes towards me, I think, no? Straight. Doesn't go anywhere. Anyway, don't worry. The principles of knowledge and detachment are two important factors on the path of transcendental realization. The whole spiritual process leads to perfect knowledge of everything material and spiritual. And the results of such perfect knowledge are that one becomes detached from material affection and becomes attached to spiritual activities. The result of perfect knowledge is you become detached. That's how you know you have knowledge. Like Krishna tells Arjuna, it's hard to believe what you're saying because you're lamenting. And, if you're actually a jnani or a Brahmin, then you wouldn't lament. That's more for Shudras. They're more influenced by Tamagun, and all the lamentation is a result of Tamagun. So if you're Brahmin or Jnani, knowledgeable, you would be sattvic, or at least sattvic in some passion. You'd have some knowledge, and that knowledge would bring you some form of enlightenment and detachment and some kind of happiness and stability, right? But you don't have stability, you don't have happiness, therefore I can't accept that you have knowledge. So, Prabhupada is saying knowledge brings detachment. It brings many things, but that's the example he's giving here. Result of such perfect knowledge is that one becomes detached from material affection and becomes attached to spiritual activities. Becoming detached from material things does not mean becoming inert altogether, as men with a poor fund of knowledge think. Naishkarmyam means not undertaking activities that will produce good or bad effects. Negation does not mean negation of the positive. Negation of the non-essentials does not mean negation of the essential. Similarly, detachment from material forms does not mean nullifying the positive forms. The bhakti cult is meant for realization of the positive form. When the positive form is realized, the negative forms are automatically eliminated. Therefore, with the development of the bhakti cult, with the application of positive service to the positive form, one naturally becomes detached from inferior things, and he becomes attached to superior things. Similarly, the bhakti cult, being the supermost occupation of a living being, leads him out of material sense enjoyment. That is a sign of a pure devotee. He is not a fool, nor is he engaged in the inferior energies, nor does he have material values. This is not possible by dry reasoning. It actually happens by the grace of the Almighty. In conclusion, one who is a pure devotee has all other good qualities, namely knowledge, detachment, etc. But one who has only knowledge or detachment is not necessarily well acquainted with the principles of the Bhakti code. Bhakti is the supermost occupation of the human being. So, what Prabhupada's saying is you can have knowledge and detachment, but it doesn't necessarily result in bhakti. But if you have bhakti, it will result in knowledge and detachment. So, Narada Muni says, what's the use of austerity if it doesn't bring bhakti? You know that verse? Aradito tapasa. What is it? Aradito yadi haris tapasa tatati. Naradito yadi haris tapasa. What's the use of austerity if it doesn't bring bhakti? And if you have bhakti, what's the use of austerity? So if you don't want to do austerity, that's your verse. You can back it up with shloka. Why don't you do austerity, Prabhu? I can back it up with this shloka. Narada Muni said there's no use. But he's referring to austerity for the sake of austerity, as a means of purification that's not connected with bhakti. Like, okay, I'm just going to fast for a week. Okay, that's good. But if you're not a devotee, how is that going to help your bhakti? It'll maybe help your sense control or your discipline, but it's not going to help your bhakti. So Narada is saying, so what's the point of your austerity if it doesn't develop bhakti? And if you have bhakti, then why just fast? Fast on Ekadasi, fast on Janmashtami, fast on the days you're supposed to fast. Because, I'm not going to fast on Janmashtami, but I'll fast the day before. That doesn't make sense. I'll fast the week before Janmashtami comes along. So the austerity in devotional service is within the process of bhakti. So what's being referred here is not within the process, just austerity for austerity's sake, or charity for charity's sake. So it doesn't mean we're not interested in charity and knowledge and austerity and sacrifice, but it's within Krishna consciousness. Like Harinam Sankirtan is a sacrifice. Our charity is we give books, we give knowledge for Brahmins, we give prasadam. So Prabhupada's making the point that if you have bhakti, it's impossible not to have knowledge. But you can also make the point, unless you have knowledge, you wouldn't even come to bhakti in the first place. And those Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga. No. Vahanam Jamanam Ante Jnanavamam. So if you actually have knowledge, you'll surrender. So both things are there. You have knowledge, you'll surrender, and then when you surrender, Vedami Buddhi Yogantam, Krishna enlightens you. And so the arguments given, what Prabhupada's addressing, is people who say, well, you're just a devotee, it means you don't know how to think, so you took the easy process because your brain doesn't work. And you're just a sissy, you can't do austerity, so you joined your grandmother and her grandkids and do some puja and chant some songs. That's what bhakti's about. You're just a stupid weakling, basically. That idea, right? So, but then you have this idea, which is described in this verse, is that bhakti gives knowledge and it gives detachment. And it's coming directly from Krishna. So that, therefore, the argument is really, no, the bhakti is the most detached and the most austere, and the most knowledgeable. Because Krishna's giving him knowledge, and he's actually detached from the desire to enjoy. Because you can be so-called detached, do some tapasya, but the question is, why are you doing that tapasya? Get some, mystic city, or get some acknowledgement, or get some peace? So that's not detachment, because you're still desiring something for yourself, right? Bhukti mukti siddhi kama, shakali ashanta. So only the devotee is desireless. So it's not a great qualification to be austere or knowledgeable if the motive of that is to get something for yourself, right? So we could say, therefore, devotee is the only one who's actually detached, because he's detached from the desire to imitate Krishna. And he's the only one who's knowledgeable, because ultimately he understands this concept of pure bhakti. And he's the only one who's knowledgeable because Krishna is giving him buddhi yogam, knowledge which is going to get him out of the material world. So let's say you have a lot of knowledge, but it doesn't get you out of the material world. So what's the point? And I have knowledge coming from Krishna to guide me, even though I'm not a great jnani, but that knowledge is guiding me out of the material world. So who's smarter? You know, it's like, I don't know if you ever listened to atheistic arguments, or straight atheistic arguments, or atheistic scientific arguments, or sometimes highly philosophical atheistic arguments. And some of these arguments are quite intelligent, so to speak, relatively ingenious in some sense. But bottom line is, it's a kind of intelligence which is being used in a way that that person will have to again take birth. So what kind of intelligence is that? It's really a funny story. There was a debate between a scientist and an atheist, and a Christian. And so the atheist was giving like amazing arguments, using all kinds of logic, why God could not exist. Very philosophical, intellectual, even scientific. And so this Christian was saying, your arguments are amazing. They're so refined, they're so deep, they're so intelligent, ingenious actually. And he said that when I hear your arguments, it develops my faith in God, because I can see God is giving you the intelligence to come up with these arguments. So it kind of duped him, turned him around. What's he? Yeah. So that's a kind of intelligence. But for us, we don't accept that as actually intelligent. Like I say, I have a coin, intelligent fools. There are many, many intelligent fools. Their thinking is very intelligent, but when you dissect it, it doesn't stand. It's without ultimate substance. So the point is being made here, that kind of intelligence which connects you to Krishna and helps you develop love of Krishna, ultimately gets you back to Krishna. That's real intelligence, right? And the kind of detachment that gets you back to Krishna, that also is real detachment. And so it can look externally like devotees aren't that intelligent, great jnanis. We can't, do you know Vedanta Sutra? Can you argue with me on the basis of Shakti? No, Prabhu, I just know how to make flower gardens. It's like that story of the philosophers debating, what fell first. What happened? The bird flew in the tree and then the apple fell, or the apple fell and then the bird came. So they're having the argument. The devotee picks up the apple and he offers it. So he's the one who really understands what to do. So that's the kind of, that's the definition we have of intelligence. That intelligence which gets you closer to Krishna. Otherwise, what's the use of intelligence that takes you away from Krishna? Well, I have a 165 IQ. I could figure out how not to surrender to Krishna. I can give you scientific evidence of why you shouldn't, and I can give it in very complex mathematical equations. And so, similarly, it may look like we're not detached. You're just out there in the world. You look like everybody else, and you have a nice house, and so on and so forth. So we were talking about this yesterday, and with one devotee. And I was telling this devotee that everything has to be engaged in Krishna's service, even your material desires. Because let's say you have a material desire, what are you going to do with it? And you're trying to get rid of it, and you're pounding it and shooting it and cutting it and putting it in the fire, and you wake up the next day and it's still there. What are you going to do with it, right? It's just, it's not even necessarily material desire, it's just your nature. It's just part of you, you're a Vaishya by nature, you dream about money, and you're like, okay, I want to stop thinking about money. You try to detach, the next day you wake up and think, oh, I could make money this way, that way. It's not even so much a desire, it's just your nature. It's not like you're going to make a crores of rupees and, live in a mansion. Your nature is you want to make money. That's just who you are, or whatever. But even if we say it is your desire, but what are you going to do with that desire? It belongs to Krishna, so you engage it. So even though I like to make money, I live nicely, I make a nice house, I make it big enough, I can have 500 devotees over it. You know, so it's like, it's more. We can fit more. We were having a big program. We have to go to my house because it's not even big enough here. Right? So I have so much money. I can build a house where 500 people could come. Okay, I like big houses. It's a nice house. Got a swimming pool, everything. Invite the devotees over. Go swimming. So I'm engaging that desire. I have this desire. I engage it. And then actually, I'm more detached than the so-called yogi who's doing his tapasya. Right, what for? To fulfill some subtle, desire for power or recognition or whatever, or what to speak of become God. It's kind of interesting that you would go through a process of detachment to become God, because becoming God is the height of materialism, isn't it? So it's such a paradox. So then how is that detachment? If the ultimate goal of your detachment is to become God, how can you call that detachment? But I build a big house and I invite devotees to come over and I feed them prasadam, we have programs, all the visiting devotees, they come, they have a nice place to stay. And I'm using it for Krishna. So that's detachment. One time Prabhupada said something quite interesting. One time he said, the grihastas, they're the real renunciates because they're living with all the forms of sense gratification and they're not engaging it. So they're actually, in a sense, more renounced than, okay, I'm a grihasta, wife, family, house, I have to detach from it. Oh, I can just take sannyasa, I don't have any of it, so I don't have to worry about it. So it's actually a greater form of detachment to be with it and be detached from it. And therefore, when Prabhupada initiated sannyasis who were formerly grihastas, he gave them the name Goswami. And if they were not married, he gave the name Swami. Did you know that? So sometimes you'll see Satsarup Dasa Goswami or Ramakrishna Goswami or so-and-so Swami. Like, why the difference? Is there? They're Goswamis because they renounced their family. They renounced their families, Goswami. So Prabhupada glorified that. You're living as a grihasta and you renounce. Well, if you're brahmachari, what did you renounce? It was actually upgrade. Now you get your own room. Right? It's a sannyasi, isn't it? Instead of 4 in a room, you have your own room. Okay, I'm sannyasi, everybody, get out. It's my room. But if you're grihasta, you're actually renouncing. You're giving up so much. So he would glorify the grihastas. Even the ones who didn't take sannyas. He said, you're already sannyas, you've given everything to Krishna. So you have these things. It doesn't look externally like you're this great sannyasi or great renouncer, but internally you are, because you're living with all this and you're just using it for Krishna. And so that's renunciation, right? And so we were having this discussion yesterday. Well, what do you do? Or the class we had the other night. What do you do? You have these material desires, and you're not mature enough in bhakti that they've gone away yet. What do you do with them? You use them. Just like it's like asking, Prabhu, I have 70 crores of rupees. What do I do with it? Okay, we're building a temple. How about that? You can give it over there. We have so many things we can do with it, right? We don't say 70 crores of rupees. That's a lot of maya. I think you should burn it up. We don't say that. It's like, Prabhu, I have this desire. That's a lot of maya. Go put that desire in the fire. Well, I tried to burn it, but it wouldn't burn up. Oh, so the same thing. Okay, I have this desire. I have to use it for Krishna somehow or other. I have to connect it, right? Oh, I'm a Vaishya. I love to make money. Okay. So, all right, let's think of what you're going to do with your money. How can I engage that money? Whatever it is. So that's real renunciation. And that's what we're learning to do. So even though you have a desire, you think, I'm so bad. I have all these desires. but you use those, you connect those in Krishna service, then although they're desires, you're actually detaching from them, in a sense. Because, like, for me, for example, I like to do music, right? But you'll never see me sitting around singing, the latest Bollywood hit or whatever. So I like to do music, but it's restricted to only being music in connection with Krishna, right? So there's a desire, but it's a detached desire because I'm detaching from doing it for any other purpose than service. So I'm actually detached from music, even though I'm doing it. Right? Yeah, so with us, with anything, whatever it is, it's a detachment. Even, male-female, it's the basis of material attachment. But even that, if one has that desire, still he's detached, sufficiently detached that he doesn't become crazy. He sees his wife or she sees her husband as Krishna's servant, not my servant. So doesn't think, I'm the controller of my husband, I'm the controller of my wife. Even with money, I'm the controller of money. No, it's all energy, it's Krishna's. I'm subordinate, I'm a servant. So even though I have that desire, I employ it in a way that I'm actually detached. Yes? Your wife says, I'm going to the temple to do arti. No, you do arti to me, not to the deity. You can't. No, don't go. Yeah, good. I'm very happy you're worshipping Krishna. That's the detachment, right? I have to cook today for the deities. Oh, you can't cook for me. I mean, the wife should cook for the husband, but let's say, an example, they call her up at the last moment. They've got to, just as about the time she's going to cook dinner for her husband, they call her up and say, the cook is sick, can you cook? And she says, okay, and so she runs over to the temple and she sends an SMS to her husband and says, I can't cook because I'm cooking for the deity, right? So husbands and wives, oh, very nice, my wife's cooking for the deity. Right? Yes? So there's a detachment there. So, he's married, he's a detached grihasta, living deep in the well of Maya, so on and so forth. No. It's not like that. It might look like that, but actually what's going on in his consciousness, there's a kind of detachment. So even though he or she is attached, they like one another, have a nice family, nice home, nice comfortable chair to sit. I'm very attached to this chair. It's very comfortable. So what do I do in the chair? I read Bhagavatam. This is a good chair for reading Bhagavatam. Just like at Sureshwar's house. He has a chair. Every morning I sit in the chair and chant my rounds. Very comfortable chair. So I'm very attached to that chair. I'm thinking of putting it on the plane and taking it back to me. Because in that chair I chant very nice rounds because my body's very comfortable. Right? So, but the chair is being used in Krishna's service. So there's a detachment there. I'm actually not going to take it on the plane. I'm so detached. I will leave the chair here. So this is the idea, right? So it's a heart thing. The detachment, the knowledge, that's all in the heart. So that's the point of this verse. Whatever you have, whatever you like, whatever desire you have, you connect it to Krishna somehow or other, right? Some of you like to manage. Like Lord Brahma, he likes to control. So a living entity who likes to control, what better position? Do you want to be CEO of Google or CEO of the universe? Better be CEO of the universe, more control. So that's Brahma's position. He likes to control, he likes to manage. But Krishna engages that tendency. Krishna needs someone to manage the universe. Okay, we have to find somebody who likes to manage, who likes to control. But so Brahma engages that in service. Right? We need people to manage, right? We need people to lead, we need people to follow, we need people to administrate. So we all have all these desires. It's not a problem. It's just a problem if you want to control everybody and exploit them. That's a problem. But if you want to control in Krishna service, it's not a problem. So why don't we stop? Because I know you have so many questions that we'll let you ask. Yes?
Two questions.
Okay.
First one.
First one's free, second one 10 rupees.
Thank you very much for enlightening on the subject. The shloka says that if someone has bhakti, someone is practicing bhakti, then knowledge and renunciation follows. Elsewhere in Prabhupada purports, we find Prabhupada says, if one is a devotee, then he is above all the Vedic ritualistic sacrificing.
Yes.
So this word, and even Mamcho Avyavicharya, Prabhupada mentions about bhakti there also.
Yes.
But then, is it referring to a pure devotee, or even to me, who is not struggling with
Yeah, because if there wasn't some knowledge and detachment, you wouldn't be sitting here right now. So a lot of these, it's like pure devotee. Well, there are different degrees of pure devotee. So a lot of liberation. Well, what does that mean? Merging in Brahman or freedom from sin? Well, it means both. It depends. So a lot of times when Prabhupada says something, he's not defining it in that particular purport. And so, from what I've seen, he often uses very broad definitions unless he's specifying that this is what I mean. So I come to the temple, I start chanting Hare Krishna. I was 19. And after, a month or so, maybe 6 weeks, I become vegetarian, I become celibate, I follow all the principles. And I wasn't following all the principles before. And I actually wasn't consciously trying to follow. The first night I met devotees, they said, we're celibate. And I said to myself, that's impossible, at least for me. Vegetarian is okay. And then they said we don't take drugs, and I also thought that's also difficult. Because in the culture we grew up, that was kind of normal. It was like, drugs are kind of like oxygen. It's really just, without them, you weren't fully alive. Something like that. But I wasn't opposed to the idea. It just seemed impossible for me. I like the idea of celibacy and vegetarianism and not taking drugs. And about 6 weeks later, I was following all the principles. So subtly I had the desire, but consciously I wasn't saying, okay, by this date I'm going to stop doing this, and this is the strategy to stop, and I'll stop. I'll be level 1 stop, level 2, level 3. And one day I woke up and I said to myself, it's amazing, for the last 2 weeks you haven't eaten meat, had sex, or taken drugs. It's like, that's, a long time for you. You don't know how bad that culture was. It was really bad. So that detachment, that's a proof of this verse. So, not great detachment, but, more detachment than I had before. So it works on everyone at every stage. Knowledge, I had some knowledge. I had enough knowledge to appreciate the Gita and want to chant. I had enough knowledge to chant Hare Krishna. At one time, Prabhupada said, the goal of all the knowledge is to come to chant Hare Krishna, chant purely. That's what all his books are getting us to do. Ultimately, Shuddhanam. So I had enough knowledge to chant every day, associate with devotees. So that's a kind of knowledge, right? I couldn't, debate you on Vedanta Sutra, but I could give you the basics of the Gita. I knew I wasn't the body. I understood that. I knew I was a servant. I knew I was supposed to please Krishna. So in a sense, you could say, well, I was quite learned compared to so many others who don't know that, but know so many other Shastric pramans, except that I'm a servant of Krishna. Yeah. Second question. We'll give it to you free this time.
You're talking about engaging material desires in Krishna service. You give an example of building a huge house. Let me give an example of a householder whose opulent life, everything is within the restriction of Krishna consciousness. The prasadam he eats is pretty opulent. Ghee, pizza prasad, burger prasad and everything. He invites devotees once in a week to his home, has feast, swimming pool, bath and everything.
Stay overnight, each get your own room, with a jacuzzi. Yeah, you love that devotee. You want him to make more money and build more rooms.
Even on Ekadashis, he makes sure that he takes non-grain but opulent prasad and everything. He offers everything to Krishna. The question is, suppose he lives like this throughout life. He's standing 16 rounds, somehow doing it. And then there is no austerity with respect to gross sets.
Austerity in respect to?
Gross. This is gross. He doesn't sleep on the floor or he fasts without water. And he makes sure that he has the loopholes for making sure life is comfortable and at the same time Krishna conscious.
What happens to him when he's older?
Will you go back to Godhead? Is the question.
Well, the way it's supposed to, I can't say about him. Yeah, he'll go back to Godhead because he'll die of a heart attack from eating so much pizza, right? And he'll be very blissful eating his pizza. Krishna. Definitely he'll go back to Godhead, no question. So, if the system works perfectly, the idea is when he's older, he says, okay, I've eaten enough pizza, I've eaten enough this, I have this big house, let me just go to Vrindavan and do austerity. That's what it's supposed to do. So if it's going to do that, there's got to be some austerity within that. And I've been in a lot of very nice homes, devotees, especially in the UAE, because the salaries are very good, and or they work for companies that give them nice homes. And they're up every morning at 4 o'clock in their beautiful home, even though their bed is very soft and it's air conditioned or heated. They're up every morning at 4 o'clock. So I think that's important, that austerity continues. And if that sadhana is good, then it will be expected that when they're older, they'll say, okay, it's time to renounce, because that's our philosophy, that's our shastra. Yes. That's right? That's our philosophy. So that's how it's supposed to work, right? And you need to be conscious of that when you're doing that this is, I have this desire. That we were saying last night that these sannyasis, when they hit 50 to 65, they sometimes give up their sannyas because of these dormant, unfulfilled desires. So the idea is the devotee's thinking, okay, I have this desire, how strong is it? Can I renounce it? So they naturally, the first option is, let me renounce it, right? Because that would make my life more simple. But I try to renounce it when I see, I always think about making money. I can't stop thinking about it. It's just my nature, My father was, his grandfather, they were all business people. It's like, it runs in my veins. I can't stop it. All right, so what do I do? Okay, I'll make money. We'll use that for preaching. You've probably seen many wealthy people extremely generous. They give a lot of money, but they all live in nice homes. It's very rare you have a Warren Buffett who lives in a simple house who is a billionaire. That's really rare. Usually the wealthy people, even though they're giving a lot, they make sure they have what they need. But so you might ask, well, should a devotee do that? And the answer is the devotee should take what he needs so that when he's 50 he won't go crazy and think, I never fulfilled that desire and now I'm going to build a big house because I always wanted one. So that's the idea. So it's just being realistic. And we don't judge it as good or bad. It's just like, is your material desire good or bad? It just is. Now, is it good or bad? Is it how you use it? And then ultimately, as you're saying here, the real test is, do you end up detached from it when you're older? Because it's not how you start, it's how you finish. So okay, I went through this whole process, built a big house, did this, etc., etc. But now I'm living in Vrindavan in a one-bedroom apartment with my wife, and we're, 64 rounds and near Jalakadis. Okay, so it worked for you. But if, you end up in total Maya in your old age, then it didn't work. So you have to know that, and you have to know the process to get to the goal. And obviously you have to know the goal is to detach from it. So basically, you start out as a brahmachari, then a grihastha, then you end up more or less like a brahmachari again. You're just living simple. And it's a natural process. Because even if you're not a devotee, when you get old, you start giving things away. And you move out of your big house in a small house, and you simplify. It's a natural process. So, your question. One more.
Connected to this,
Yes.
you said that suppose someone has material desires,
Yes.
then the first thing is to renounce it. But then he's not able to give it up.
Yes.
So then what should a devotee do who is determined, he says, I'm ready to pay the price. Tell me what it takes to renounce this. I'm done with it.
Oh. I don't know if you can do that. That's the point. You have to. It's like we have the example of a young man taking sannyas. And he wants to take sannyas sincerely. And he understands intellectually that this would be best, but he doesn't have the samskara. So, you have to take in consideration not just what you intellectually understand, but what are your samskaras. And that's where we sometimes get confused. Because if we intellectually understand it, then we think we're qualified for it. Like I would really like to take sannyas, and I can see all the benefits. But I'm only 22, and I don't have a lot of life experience to look to the future and understand that maybe at 35 I won't be able to do it. So that's why I think in the Madhva Sampradaya they'll do the astrology. So you really want to look at your samskara. So if you have, let's say you have a desire to be very renounced, but you see you don't have the samskara yet. There's still a need for connection with the female energy. You need that to be peaceful. You'll probably, the best I would suggest, find a woman who's renounced also. And you'll probably live a grihastha life for renounced. Like we have some godbrothers, who married, for some reason never had children, always lived a renounced life. Basically, they had a desire for a woman, but on the other hand, they had a desire for renunciation. So that's a way you could do it, So you have to understand your samskaras. Otherwise, those samskaras will come and attack you. And so I have that samskara, so I have to do something to detach from it. And I try to detach, take sannyas, and then I meet some beautiful woman, and I feel like, I really want to have kids and more independence. And this level of renunciation, I realize I won't be able to maintain it. So some of them just go away. It's kind of the all or nothing. But we see that even with devotees in general, who try to go too far too fast, and they can't do it. Sometimes they leave Krishna consciousness because they're thinking it's got to be this high level of renunciation, and if I can't do it, then what's the use of doing anything? So that's really important to understand, because we lose a lot of devotees that way. One of the reasons we lose a lot of devotees that way is because the preaching is of course in our books is renunciation, but it has to be explained within this context of what renunciation means. Otherwise you misunderstand it, and then you try to renounce beyond your adhikar, and then you can't maintain it, and then sometimes you think, I'm a failure, I can't be a devotee, because I can't achieve this level of renunciation. So, yes, this is the level of renunciation. It's just a question of when you're going to reach it. Can you reach it at 20, or will it take it to your 60, or maybe 80? So, if we preach that way, then we won't have this all or nothing idea. But if we preach and we preach renunciation very strongly, but we don't explain this, that's when you get this all or nothing. And you get dysfunctional grihastha life, because you get people entering grihastha ashram who are trying to live more like brahmacharis than grihasthas. And that doesn't work either. Yes?
One last.
One last. He changed me up. 2 questions became 4. There's a joke. You go to the guru. You climb to the top of the Himalayas, and you find the guru. And you say, Guruji, I have to ask you some questions. And he says, you only get 3. And then you say, only 3? 2 left. Why only 2? 1 left. Yes.
Prabhupada writes in the purport that about the astrology thing, that as long as a person is not a devotee, then he is under the influence of the astronomical.
Yeah.
Once he becomes a devotee, karmani nidhati kintu cha bhakti vaja,
Yeah.
as Prabhupada mentions. Now, in the case of devotees, some people assume that, Prabhu, I am a devotee now, so I don't have to go through astrology.
Yeah.
Some devotees say, I am not yet a pure devotee, so I have to refer astrology.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have an experience of meeting one of the sannyasis in his call. So he was wearing a ring. So then I was talking to someone, I was just a third person hearing the conversation. He said, I went to an astrologer, he told me I have some Shani issue, that's why I'm wearing this ring. I was thinking, my God, even at a sannyas level, there is consideration of. Then where does it end then? What is this?
It ends at prema. Before that, there's some influence. As you advance, less influence of the modes of nature. More, as you advance first, it's more sattva, and then at some point, not even sattva, vishuddha sattva. But in regards to this discussion, you could even see among sannyasis, some are more renounced than others. Some do only sleep on the floor. Don't even wear sewn clothes. Only wear the, what do you call those shoes? Padukas, those wooden shoes, and, eat really simple, and just, they love renunciation. And others, they need more. They need more to do their service. They need more opulence. They like nicer things. But still, they're both renounced. But it takes a different, that one that likes nice things may only be sleeping. He may be sleeping in his big bed, but only 4 hours. He's got to go a plate, but he hardly eats anything. So he's still renounced, but it takes a different form because we're all individuals. But we want to, even, let's say you think, let's turn it around and say, you think I want to get married, then I would say, do you have the samskars for that? Because maybe you have too much detachment and it won't work unless your wife is equally detached. And that would be rare to find a woman. And if she's that detached, why would she want to get married? Right? But so, you may switch it around and look at it in that way. That maybe, I think I have this need for the female energy, but maybe my samskars are so renounced that I couldn't actually live with it. And some men did get married, and after they got married, they saw that they had their renunciation samskars were so strong. Within a year, they left it. We have sannyasis in our movement that were married. You may not know they were married, but their marriage lasted a year because it took them being married to realize that they actually couldn't do this. For them, there was an austerity to be around female energy. They didn't like it. It didn't, it was, how to say, it was like, you know what I mean. It was like, it wasn't pleasant for them. It wasn't, but if a man likes female energy, it's pleasant. It gives him energy, right? The woman is the energy behind the man, right? The Cleopatra behind the Caesar. So Prabhupada said that behind every great man there's a woman. So for most men, they'll get energy from women, right? Men like to show off for women. We actually have a temple in America, and many devotees are joining. And I said, how is it that you're making so many devotees? He says, my secret is I allow women to live in the temple, and that's why the men join.
My God.
It's just psychology, energy. Well, all these girls are joining. I can't let them join and not me join. It's not that they're joining to associate with the women. It's just women are joining and not me. So there's an inspiration. I joined. I was planning to join, but there were 2 women. They were coming to the temple, and they joined. And when I found out they moved in the temple, I was like, well, they moved in, I have to. Right? So that's there for some men, right? But if you don't have it, and then you get married, then by being married, you'll see. I don't have that need. So we have several of our sannyasis or Varnapras went through that experience. They actually got married, just due to the attraction, male-female, to find out they didn't have the marriage samskars. And they actually couldn't do it. They couldn't tolerate that situation. They needed their independence, they needed their freedom, they were too renounced to be interested in anything that the wife really needed, and it was just hell for both of them. So that's the opposite side. So you really have to understand your nature and how to engage it. Otherwise, you run into trouble on one side or the other. Yes.
So, like you were speaking about fulfilling material desires. If simple things are there, like to eat something, that's okay. But sometimes when we see when we want to fulfill that, but we may get distracted also.
Yes.
So
Good
what
point,
we
good
should
point.
take cautious
Yeah.
of things so that when we are fulfilling material desire, that we go, because
Yeah.
initially we have to add Krishna in that,
Yes.
but later when we engage in it, we
Yeah.
get lost.
So it's a very good question. He's asking, in fulfillment of material desire, you add Krishna, but what if you add more Maya, and then Krishna kind of disappears? That possibility is there, a definite possibility. It requires a sufficient level of detachment from the concept that I'm an enjoyer of this desire. So to give you an example of myself, that I've done several CDs, music CDs, and I have written some songs in English because I just had, it just happens. I didn't even try to write the songs, but, it just come to me. So then I was thinking, what am I going to do with this? It's a very strong desire. I did it when I was young, and I wrote songs when I was young, and several of the songs I wrote, it was just, minding my own business. I wasn't sitting down, let's write a song. I was minding my own business, and then the song comes, like, oh, I have to get a piece of paper, And all of a sudden, there's a song, There's one song. How did it go? Yeah. That was a really good song. It's called Ordinary Man. How did that song go? I was doing something. I had a business at one point. And I was working alongside all these other people who were working really, really hard. And I was watching this. And while I was doing this, this whole song came to me. About ordinary man, working really hard, not thinking, goes to church, but he doesn't get it, and he just gets old, and he dies in ignorance, and that's his life. So what am I going to do? I actually recorded the song. It was in my head. I had to do something, right? But I made kind of a threshold of renunciation, and the point was that the music, I will do it only if it can be used in service. I won't just, because I could easily just play music for hours with no purpose other than enjoying it. And I could write stupid songs also. So that protected me. I made a contract, I made a vrata with myself. So I had a music studio and lots of instruments, and I had, save money every year. It took me like 10 or 20 years, and I finally had this really nice studio. And when I looked at it, I said, this is dangerous. Because this is actually what I wanted to do before I was a devotee, and now it's like 30 years later. So this is really dangerous. This could explode into complete Maya. So Krishna gave me the intelligence that I made this vow to myself, you can only use the studio for seva. You can't use it for just playing, wasting time. And that saved me. So the song was there. Okay, we recorded it. You can, I let devotees hear it. It was really for non-devotees, but it was preaching through music. So I did it. So that's how you have to enter any situation where you have a material desire. You have to kind of figure out what are your boundaries, because you kind of know where the Maya begins, right? Okay, I want to do this. Here's the Krishna. Here's the circle of Krishna, and I could see Maya. I could easily go beyond that circle. So you have to define what that circle is, so you know not to go beyond. Okay? Just like if you're a brahmachari or a single man, there's some etiquette in dealing with women, and so here's the circle of etiquette. You can deal with them, Mataji. Do you know where the salt is? Just, I know the salt. Do you want me to get it? No, I'll get it. No problem. Yeah, you can give me the salt. Can you give me some chapatis too and a little sweet rice? And I'll just be in the back room. You can come. Could you serve me also? So that's beyond the circle, right? You know that, right? You know where the circle, what's in it and what's beyond it, right? So you have to know that when whatever that desire is or how you're dealing with it, you have to be really clear. Where is Krishna end and Maya begin in that equation? So that's important. And if you might say, but I don't know yet because I've never done it. Well, then take guidance from senior devotees who have done it. I have this desire, or I need to support my family. They want me to work. I got this job, at Google, and talk to a devotee who works at Google. What's it like? How do you deal with it? They have you have to be really careful because this is an American company. So you could be working with women, mingling, this and that. You could have you end up having your office spouse as well as your spouse at home. All these things are going on there. Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, you have to be really careful, be very formal with them. After a while, they'll understand, I can't talk to this guy, he's a total nerd. He doesn't want to talk to women. And, they'll give you guidelines, how you can traverse it without being affected. So you do your job, you're making good money, you're supporting your family, you're giving donations to the temple, everything works. And you have your parameters, and you're not, there's opportunities to work overtime, you don't do it because you maintain your sadhana. So you understand what's outside the circle, what's inside the circle. That's very important. Now sometimes you might say, but some things are outside the circle I can't control. Well, then you better chant more rounds. So you're strong enough, But now they put me, on this assignment with this young girl. She's my age, and I have to work with her for the next 2 weeks. All right, chant more rounds before you go to work, Fast every morning. I don't know what. Read 3 hours. Get up at 2 in the morning. You understand what you're dealing with, so you're careful. You're smart. I would just say, let me put that in one phrase. You're smart. Be smart about how you deal with your desires, so that you can get to the other side when you're older, and you don't get destroyed before you get older and give up your bhakti. So if you can, the whole idea is you can maintain your bhakti throughout your life steadily. Just by the natural process, this verse is saying you will become detached if you do it properly. So the problem, I don't know if you have this problem here in India, but the problem we have in Western countries is devotees just don't stay. They do it enthusiastically 3, 4, 5, 10 years, and then they've done so much austerity. They're like the person who's been fasting for 5 days and then they overeat. They did too much austerity and they just give it up and they overeat. So in seeing this, and it's become quite common, in seeing this, my meditation is that the real thing we want is steadiness on whatever. You don't have to be steady up here, just be steady somewhere. So at least you're on an incline a little bit, you're going up. So eventually, over a long time, 20 years from now, at least you'll be up here instead of Krishna or nothing. Boom. And then you crash. And, I'm not a pure devotee. I give up. I'll just be a materialist. That's the big challenge that I see facing the world today. The devotees are a lot of shooting star devotees, and overestimating their samskar, their adhikari, for bhakti in the beginning. And so we need senior devotees guiding young devotees, and the young devotees, brahmacharya, wait a minute, hold on, slow down. Let's look at this, let's talk about it. Maybe you are, well, let's make sure you are before you do it. Because we don't want you at the age of 65 thinking, maybe I should get married now. And there's a 28-year-old brahmacharini here, I think she'd make a good wife. You don't want that to happen. Right? And it does happen. Well, I'm exaggerating, but maybe more like 35 and you're 65. That is not uncommon. So you don't want that to happen, right? That's the point of engaging your material desires in a way that you can satisfy them and become detached from them. So when you're older, it's much easier. Right? You've spent 40 years married with children. You're used to living with the opposite sex. It's not like a big thing. You've done it for 40 years, right? If you live as a brahmachari for 40 years, you've been very detached. You better be strong because you're not used to that association. And if you're not used to it, there's a little attraction. Things which are rare are more attractive, right? So your grihastha, it's not rare. You've had it. You've lived with it. It's, it's like, okay, I live with it. I know. We had a nice grihastha life. Everything's fine. But, I'm not illusioned by it. I know the trials and tribulations of Grihastha life. I went through it. And so when I see a young couple, I don't think, oh, I wish I were 40 years younger and could do that again. You go, oh, thank God it's over. You know, that was really tough, you know, raising those kids and, you know, I had to work so hard. I'm not putting Grihastha life down. I'm just saying for myself, you know, it's like, it's not easy work raising kids, right? It's hard work, you know. So, you know, when, you know, they have a saying in America, you know, if I knew having grandchildren was so much fun, I would have had them first. So, yeah, you know, your grandparent is fun because you just play with them and give them back. You know, that's fun. But, you know, ask your grandparent, you know, you want to have kids again and, you know, go back to work and, you know, raise them? I'm like, no way. I'm happy. I love grandkids. My own kids? No, not again. So that's the process of growing up. Like I've done workshops, some workshops I've done for 15 years. I don't even want to do them anymore. It's just I'm bored with it. I was so excited when I did it, you know, like 15 years ago. Yeah, you know, I was shaking up the auditorium. And now I do it, okay, turn to page 5. The first question, just answer it, you know. Don't bother me. If you don't understand it, don't worry. And it's like, you know, so that's what happens as you grow and you've done something, right? It's just, you're used to it. It's not exciting, you know, right? If all your life you've driven in a Mercedes, it's not exciting. A Ferrari will be exciting, right? Tesla car or something. So that's what happens when you live with it. And so when you're older, it's kind of natural to be detached. Yes? So our service is to help the younger devotees understand where they stand on the scale. What's that point where they can go up? And, you know, if the devotee says, I want to be down here, and you determine, no, you can be up here. Yeah, help him be up here. If he says, I want to be up here, and you're like, no way, you're going to crash. You bring him down here. As long as it's going up, right? And as you become more detached, it'll go more like this. And so Vanaprastha is more like that. And sannyasa is supposed to be like that. Now you don't have to take sannyasa if you're not qualified. Vanaprastha is good enough. So we should end here. So we'll see you tomorrow. Tonight actually, 8 o'clock. See you tonight. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.